Good morning, Leader.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the County Council Executive. My name is Councillor Martin Hill. I'm leader of the council and therefore chairman of this executive board. So without further ado, I'll move on to item 1. I think we're all aware of the rules of engagement, so to speak. So I'll move straight on with apologies for absence, please, Cheryl.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Firstly, can I just ask members to confirm that they're present when their name is called? Councillor Mrs Bradwell.
Present.
Councillor Colin Davey.
Present.
Councillor Eddie Paul. Councillor Paul? No. Councillor Mrs Woolley.
Present.
Councillor Worth.
Present.
Councillor Barry Young.
Present.
Councillor Parker, Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board.
Present.
Thank you. Debbie Barnes, Chief Executive, is also in attendance, along with Andrew Crookham, Executive Director for Resources, James Drury, Executive Director for Commercial, Glenn Garrett, Executive Director of Adult Care and Community Wellbeing, Andy Gutherson, Executive Director for Place, Heather Sandy, Executive Director for Children's Services, Nigel West, Head of Democratic Services, and I'm Cheryl Evans, Democratic Services Officer. I'll just go back to Councillor Poll. Are you present? No. Okay. In terms of apologies for absence, Leader, I've received apologies from Councillor Davis.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Okay, we move then on to item 3 then, which is any announcements by the executive or executive directors. Councillor Davis. Davey, you've got an announcement, haven't you?
Thank you. And actually, I've got 2 this morning. Firstly, I would like to update the executive on the business support package that we have previously announced and discussed. So, initially, Lincolnshire County Council's Business Recovery Grant has been very successful. We have had 411 applications requesting just over £3 million. The team will now be carrying out checks on applications with a view to the first payments to the eligible businesses being made during the latter part of next week. Feedback from many businesses was that they have made a loss but did not meet the 30% threshold. So the scheme will reopen on Thursday, the 4th of March, to allow these businesses the chance to apply. We're obviously delighted that we've had so many applications already, and it's important that we're looking to help those businesses that have suffered with the largest losses first. We're now able to extend the eligibility to small businesses that have made any loss, provided that they meet the other criteria laid down. The application window will run from Thursday the 4th of March at 9 AM until Saturday the 6th of March at noon. As I said, the other existing eligibility criteria will remain in place. Looking ahead, in the next few weeks, we're also launching 3 further funding schemes to provide grants to help businesses improve their digital offer, expand and grow, and a specific grant for businesses and organisations in rural areas. These aim to give our local economy a much needed boost, supporting businesses into the future. Lincolnshire County Council's digital voucher scheme will support businesses that seek funding for one-to-one specialist digital advice and or new technologies such as e-commerce platform, contactless payment systems, website development, software development, IT hardware and software, for example, to support remote working and digitisation of processes. The expression of interest window will be open between the 8th of March 2021 and the 12th of March 2021. The minimum funding amount is £1,000 and the maximum is £5,000. 100% of project costs can be funded, including a recoverable VAT if the business is not VAT registered. The funding is also able to provide a contribution to a larger project where the applicant is able to pay any remaining costs over £5,000. Although the scheme is open to businesses with less than 50 employees, we are particularly keen to receive applications from those with less than 10 employees. Lincolnshire County Council's Rural Business Grant will help existing rural businesses and organisations to purchase capital equipment, what will help them respond in the challenging trading environment caused by COVID-19. Businesses can apply for between £3,000 and £25,000 of grant towards a maximum of 75% of the total project cost. Projects must be completed within 90 days of the award of funding. We're particularly keen to support businesses that provide essential services benefiting their local community. That includes village shops, post office, pubs and other retail. Although the scheme is open to businesses, again with less than 50 employees, we are particularly keen to receive applications from those with less than 10. Small businesses are an important part of Lincolnshire's economic future, and these schemes will show that this council values those businesses and wants to help them not just survive but thrive and prosper in the years ahead. That concludes my update on business support, Leader. I'd now just like to make a short announcement on carbon targets. In December, the Prime Minister, in advance of the international COP event in Glasgow, announced his plans for the UK government to reduce carbon emissions by 68% by 2030, based on the 1990 baseline. At our recent council meeting, we adopted the Green Master Plan for Lincolnshire, our roadmap for zero carbon by 2050. We were accused by some in that debate of being on a slow train on this issue, whilst they offered no alternative costed plan to achieve more. Today I want to answer this accusation by announcing a new medium-term target for the council to meet. Comparing ourselves with the ambitious target laid down by the Prime Minister for 2030, I want to announce today that we should set a short-term target of a 68% reduction in our emissions, not by 2030, but in 2025, 4 years from now. I believe this is ambitious but achievable as an authority which is already doing such good work in this area. It is what the residents of our county would expect as we go about our work of protecting and enhancing our environment for future generations to enjoy and prosper in. I hope members of this board will be happy to endorse this statement. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. I think both of those are very welcome statements and just shows that we are investing for the future of this county. Have I got any further announcements from any of the executive, please? Good. I have just got two. One is that it is now confirmed that the county council elections will go ahead on May the 6th, and the government has last week issued guidance on how they will proceed. So that is, we have some certainty now in terms of what's going to happen regarding that. And the second one is that in terms of the coronavirus, combating coronavirus, the vaccination rollout is going very well in Lincolnshire, and they are ahead of their target to get the next tranches done by April the 15th. So good news there. And our testing programme also continues, and we have quite a comprehensive system of testing across the county now for incidents of coronavirus. And the rates do remain low, but and actually haven't risen a lot in Lincolnshire, but because they have fallen elsewhere, certainly in the south of the county, it is higher than the national average, but still at quite low levels, and basically seems to be around places of work, I would say. But apart from that, very good news across the rest of the county and country in terms of this very difficult disease. So unless anybody else has got any further announcements, I need to just get back to item 2, which I apologise I went over, which is the declarations of interest. So could I ask if anybody wishes to declare, councillor wishes to declare an interest, please? I'm not seeing anything, Nigel, so I shall proceed. Thank you for that. So item 4 then is the minutes of the meeting of the executive held on the 2nd of February. Is anybody not happy that I sign these as a true and accurate record? So if you're not happy, please indicate now. I'm not seeing anything, so I can take it then I can sign those. Correct, Nigel?
That's correct, Leader.
Thank you very much. Okay then, so we go on to the first item on the agenda, substantive item 5, which is performance reporting against quarter 3 framework. So James, or are we going straight to Jasmine?
Thank you, Leader. We can go straight to Jasmine, I think, please, to talk through the detail.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see everybody and present to you the quarter 3 performance report against the corporate plan. So the report is by exception, and by that I mean I've highlighted the activities that are behind plan and also those activities that are ahead of plan, as well as the key performance indicators that are in the corporate plan where we're celebrating success. In terms of the full performance for quarter 3, that's published on the website under the corporate plan. So if anyone wants to have a look, there's links in the report, but also if you wanted to search the website, you go onto the corporate plan, it's under performance data. So this report is organised around the 4 ambitions in the corporate plan, and overall each of those ambitions is on plan. And that's based around the milestones for the key activities and also the targets for the key performance indicators. So overall in quarter 3 has been a challenging time due to the pandemic and also local and national restrictions, but I'm pleased to report that the majority of the milestones and targets have been achieved in quarter 3. So in terms of the activities, we've got 65% of those that are on plan or ahead of plan. So that's 22 out of the 34 with milestones during quarter 3. And in terms of the key performance indicators, 86% of those met or exceeded the target. So that's 6 out of 7 of those met or exceeded the target. And the only one that didn't achieve the target was related around ratings of Ofsted inspections of good or above. And obviously those inspections haven't taken place in quarter 2 or quarter 3 due to the pandemic and the restrictions. So pages 16 to 20 of the report, I've just highlighted the activities that are behind plan. And just to show really the impact of the pandemic on the activities that are in the corporate plan. So nearly 60% of those are behind plan due to COVID-19. So that's 7 out of those 12 that are behind plan. And further details of all of the activities behind plan are in Appendix A, so pages 29 onwards. What I've included in there is the milestones that were due in quarter 3, the activities that's taken place, which explains the reasons why they were behind plan, but also the next milestones. And that was specifically taking on feedback from when we brought the quarter 2 report to OSMB. So you can see what the next step is as well in terms of each of those activities. And then on pages 19 and 20, I've highlighted the achievements of those activities. So those good news stories, because we have 20 of those activities on plan and 2 ahead of plan. And then pages 22 to 24, I've highlighted the successes of the key performance indicators. So that's it from me. Happy to pass it on to Councillor Parker, because there was a good discussion around this report when it came to OSMB last week.
Thank you, Jasmine. Councillor Parker.
Yes, thank you. We focused, as we tend to, on 2 major themes in this particular meeting. One was to do with the business world system delay, and secondly was to do with Fix My Street. A paper's been sent, and if anybody's interested, the page 18 deals with business world system because it's an integral part of the County Council's future activities. And the way that we want to change the way of operating, we were particularly interested in this. We recognised, of course, the difficulties of the context of the last few months, which is to do with COVID. We noted that there is a delay. Going forward, we recognised that we needed to keep an eye on it. So the first meeting of the new council, when it comes to OSMB, will be looking with interest to make sure that the revised live date for later in the year can be met, because it is a big feature, as I've said, about the way that we will be operating in the future. Secondly, and more mundane, but just as important for elected members, is the Fix My Street concerns that were raised. This is dealt with on page 20. it was good to know that the Chief Executive recognised the strength of feeling among councillors, because councillors were saying that that the problem was that Fix My Street demonstrated or showed that work had been completed, when in fact it was really that the work had started, and that didn't necessarily mean an outcome. The Chief Executive said that she would look into having a fundamental review of the Fix My Street, because in turn it's not just about councillors, it's about the members of the public who report Fix My Street, and if we were seeing it, then presumably they too were. And because highways is one of the most important issues that the council does when it comes to relating to our public, it does seem as though we need to be watching this again. So two big issues: business world system delay and our concerns about Fix My Street.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Parker. So we'll just start with those two in reverse order. So just on Fix My Street, which has, just to give some context to this before Andy Gutherson comes in, obviously we did have our own system some years ago, but found out that the public in particular overwhelmingly used Fix My Street. So it is a national system, and I think we are aware that there is some issues in terms of terminology in particular on the system, and whether those are actually fixable or not, I don't know, but I think Andy Gutherson can probably help us. There is an issue in when it says certain terms don't mean what you think they mean, is probably the layman's explanation. Andy, do you want to just give some more detail?
Yeah, morning, Councillor Hill. Yeah, this is an issue that's plagued us pretty much from day one, with the interface between Fix My Street and our own sort of systems and our own sort of coding. We have made significant improvements and changes, but we do recognise there are still some sort of lagging issues that have been reported by members and sort of summarised by Councillor Parker. In the context of our new contract with Balfour Beatty, they are working closely with us to make sure that the alignment of the codes that are used in our back office confirm system more neatly align with the expectations and the quality of information that should be available to the public. We are, in the meantime, sort of trying to make sure that manual workarounds are in place where necessary, but it is a problem that we're aware of, and we're continuing to make progress. The position is better than it was a year or 2 years ago. There is still room for improvement, and we will follow through in terms of the commitment to make sure that the system is as accurate and effective as possible. Just as an aside, over the next 2 or 3 months, all of the members of the council will also get a rollout of a specific app which gives them more direct information about the activities that are taking place in terms of defects, repairs, issues on the network within their own particular division. So that will give members even more confidence about the quality of information and the state of the network in those areas. It's going to be rolled out initially to those members that were part and parcel of the Highways 2020 procurement group, which will include you, Councillor Parker, and I think Councillor Renshaw was part of that as well, that small group that came together. And then we will roll it out after that to all members of the council. So that will give a personalised, divisional sort of representation of a variety of information. Councillor Davis has already received a demonstration of it and is very pleased and confident about the information that's included. So again, we're making inroads into providing other mechanisms where members of the council can also have the confidence in the quality of information available.
I think that is good news, that we'll be able to do more self-service, if you like, and look more detail for ourselves, which will, I think, make life easier for everybody. And the other thing, just this review of the app, I mean, how long is that going to be before it's delivered? And is this rollout after the election, or what's the plan? Because obviously no councillor is confident he will still be here after May. You know, we've just got to be realistic here. You never know with elections, do you? So I wouldn't want anybody to be trained up and then they're disappointed when they're no longer here.
I think the issue with the demonstration that we've seen of the app, the amount of training that's required, dare I say, will be very limited. It is an app which, as I say, is intuitive in terms of the information. So the hope is that it will be rolled out before the elections, but recognise that obviously will then be a second phase post-election if there are any changes in terms of the elected members. obviously, in the context of the programme events that's been set up for after the election, there are obviously opportunities for a detailed sort of run through of that for new members. But what it will mean for the new members is they start with a clean slate, as it were. They don't have any of the previous baggage of how systems haven't worked. They'll be on the front foot in terms of being able to engage with their constituents.
Thank you. Councillor Woolley.
Thank you, Andy. If I could just pick up on a point that you were talking about on Fix My Street, could I offer a bit of a health warning or ask you for a workaround? It's great to have individual pieces of information for the various divisions, but there is nothing worse where, in my own example, I share a town with another councillor, and if somebody says to me, well, you know, the pothole in such and such a road, they don't want me turning around saying, oh, well, that's not in my patch. So that business of where you've got information, particularly in towns, can you just make sure that perhaps that information is spread slightly broader than just the individual member who's been elected to the division?
I won't profess to be an expert on the technicalities of how the system is going to work, but there will be provision for how senior officers of the council will be able to see across the piece, so they know the same information that members are sort of seeing. So if you were to ring Karen or myself and talk to the information that you've seen on the app, we should be able to actually get that same information, be aware of it. So if that's possible, it must be possible to extend the geography of what you see through the app. But I'll follow that up and make sure that that's taken account of, because I know that's been an issue on the other side of the street for you in other instances that we've had previously. So a fair point and fair comment.
That's good. So I think now, I mean, if the terminology, as the issue is being quoted, when it said it's being resolved, it does create a lot of issues, and I think all members have had issues where people have complained to us, said, well, they've not done anything. What we really mean is we will be doing it, but it's not clear to particularly parish clerks and members of the public. So I think that will save a lot of grief, shall we say, if those issues are resolved. Second item was about the delay to the rollout of Business World On. James, did you want to just give us an update on that and some assurance that we are on target for the delayed delivery?
Yes, thank you, Leader. The first thing is to say that, yes, we are on target for the delay, the new delayed start date, which is the 1st of November, and appreciate there'll be ongoing, both through scrutiny, through IMT board and through informal exec progress reports on that as we go through, but that is on track. There are a range of reasons for the delay, and the word COVID is used sometimes, and I think just to break that down a little bit, we have had some issues with some key staff being sick as a result. We've also had initially, in the early days of COVID, some key staff were understandably asked to pick up some COVID-specific activities very early on. That's not ongoing now, but that had a small impact. And then the biggest impact it's had is probably just thinking about how we're going to operate very differently in the future, which links to smarter working, and the fact that from a test point of view, we need to ensure that the system works really effectively in an office environment, but also in a home environment and a remote environment. And that's probably a bigger challenge for us than we'd originally planned in a test plan. So those are the areas around COVID. In addition to that, we're still trying to address and will address the complexities of some of the data in the background, and we're getting those resolved, and then ensuring that the new processes and indeed compliance with those processes is correct, so that we don't have issues ongoing post-November with that. And then the final bit around the reasons for November being selected, obviously there were delays, which I've referred to, but then also we need to get that timing right, that we've got the right capacity and resource in the service areas, so particularly finance and HR, to be able to support that. And things like signing off accounts and things like that are obviously critical, and we needed to build in those resource pressures in those service areas as well. So we've ended up with the 1st of November as a revised date, and as things stand at the moment, we are confident that that will be met, and we will keep providing update reports to provide that assurance between now and the 1st of November.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Any further comments, anybody, on this generally good report? I'm not seeing anything. So the recommendations there are on page 15, I think 15, yes. So basically that this report be considered and noted. So I'll do it by default. So is anybody not happy to note and consider the reports, not to accept the recommendations? So unless I see anybody who wishes to not support the recommendation, I'll give you a pause for a moment. Not seeing anything. Right, so I'll take that as unanimously agreed. Thank you for that, and thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you everyone. Bye.
Right, move on now to the next report, which is the Revenue Budget Monitoring Report for the third quarter of this financial year, ending on the 31st of December. So, Andrew, thank you.
Good morning, members of the executive. Yes, I'll customarily hand over to Michelle briefly in a second. I just wanted to draw attention to two important points, really. So first, this is a new suite of reports in our annual schedule. So I'm hoping that, given the progress that we've tracked throughout the year, it's given members more assurance about continued visibility and transparency over our financial position. And secondly, I guess it's just to really emphasise the scale of the challenge this year. You'll note within the report, and that probably by the end of the year we'll have received something in the region of about £100 million from the government in support for COVID. It's been a massive challenge to be managing that in any year anyway. But I think the summary that Michelle will go through for you shows how well, again, this council has managed financially, where others have been struggling. Look around the table at my county treasurer's colleagues and some of the challenges that they've been facing there. Again, this council's risen to the challenge, and I hope that's acknowledged as well as Michelle runs through that update. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that. And I say, Joe, thank you very much. And the format is very, very comprehensive and also very understandable. So compliment your team on producing this, and it's all there for members to see, and the public, of course, how we're doing in terms of progress against the budget. So Michelle, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Chairman. And I'll just highlight some key points in the report, if that's okay. So the summary table on page 38 of your report pack shows the table with the variances against each service line, and it's a summary budget position for the overall revenue budget. You'll see that our previous forecast in Q2 was showing an underspend on our service budgets of 1.9 million, excluding schools and capital financing. And in Q3, we're now forecasting an underspend of 15.4 million, which has increased underspend of just over £13 million. The largest business as usual variances are set out in paragraphs 1.4 to 112, and I'll just pick up on some of the key changes. But it's worth noting that this is quite a significant shift from our previously reported position, and that really just reflects the impact of COVID on our business as usual budgets, and generally the areas of lost activity and the need to redirect some of our resources and costs into the COVID response and using the grants that we're getting, particularly to finance those. Paragraph 112 does highlight that this may cause pressures in the new year, and we'll continue to monitor that and identify these ongoing pressures that relate to the COVID response particularly, and consider what provisions we need to make at the end of the financial year on how some of these business as usual underspends are carried forward to help with some of those pressures. And also we'll come to the COVID funding in a second, but notified by the government about funding for those pressures as well in the new year. In terms of key movements in our business as usual budgets, some of the largest ones, the adult care and community wellbeing, are now forecasting an underspend of 7.6 million. This is mainly due to sustainability payments being made to our care providers and those being met from COVID grants rather than core budgets, and public health teams work being redirected to COVID response, and these costs being mainly met by the contained outbreak management funding. Children's Services has a movement of 3.4 to an overall underspend position, 3.4 million. We've previously reported overspends on children's services in areas like LAC and school transport, but they are now being offset by additional grants being made available to fund core activity that's been diverted into the COVID response, and some under delivery of commission services.
We've also got an increased underspend on other budgets of 1.8 million relating to our corporate contingency and some other pay contingencies. We're still forecasting to be underspent on the capital financing, which isn't included in the total of the report, and we plan to transfer that into the reserves to smooth the cost of our capital programme at the end of the year. In terms of the financial impact of COVID, the key issues are highlighted on page 40 of your report, and each service directorate has included a section specifically around the challenges and costs for COVID-19 on and the impact on their services. This is all summarised at Appendix K on page 80 of your report. The actual expenditure and losses that we're reporting at this point in time are just under 37 million, and the forecast expenditure and losses for the current year are forecast to be just over 50 million, which is an overspend on our general grant that we've received of about 2.2 million, but that does include some contingency items and also is being affected by the specific grants that we're receiving on an ongoing basis at the moment. We've received just over £44 million for emergency general grant for the government, but as Andrew said, we're receiving in the region of around 100 million over the course of the year, and that includes a number of specific grants for areas such as infection control, the winter support to children and families, support to the clinically extremely vulnerable group, care home testing and workforce support, and the contained outbreak management funding. The government have also set out in our settlement that they are planning to continue to support the COVID pressures and the COVID costs into the new year, with a general grant being already notified to us of £15 million for 21-22, and the ability to reclaim losses on sales fees and charges for the first quarter of 21-22 as well. You'll also see in the report that some of the savings on our business as usual budgets are directly related to COVID activity or inactivity, I should say, and that's in paragraph 122 of the report, and that's highlighted as being £5.7 million. So at that point, I'll just hand over for any comments or questions.
Thank you very much for Michelle. Yes, it's thank you for that. I mean, I think my summary of that, it is we are in a robust financial position. I think it's fair to say, as Andrew said, compared to many other councils, I think they're quite envious of the position we are in. It is robust, but I think it's fair to say it is quite volatile because of the money, extra money, and other issues that are coming on us within years. So I think that's something that needs to be borne in mind, and also in terms of as we move to the future, where we'll actually end up when all the volatility in terms of COVID grants and COVID demands actually come out of the system. It will be quite interesting. But as you correctly said, we can deal with that when the end of year accounts come in late spring, and then we can see where we stand. So at the moment, it looks a good performance considering the challenges that we've had to and you've had to deal with. And I think it's a good news story, and it's always better to be worrying about having a bit much than we thought than having a bit less. So I've got Sue Woolley who wants to come in, please.
Thank you. I would also like to say thank you very much indeed for the way that these reports have been set out. I really do appreciate them. It's so easy to get through, to pick up points. I completely agree with the leader. I'd rather be in this position than wondering where we're going to find the next penny from. A couple of things that I wanted to ask. One's on highways, and it's really such a silly little question, but what is white salt as opposed to any other salt? And then the other one, which is more of a financy question, was on page 83. We've got some bullet points that say the financial position is driven by, and there's a sentence that says an increase in contract re-tendering costs, including delayed procurement of 0.77 million, in other words, £750,000. And it just feels a bit, it's not very specific at all. Could you just give me an example of why a contract re-tendering cost would be more now than it would have been pre-COVID, and likewise the delayed procurements, why there is the increase. Thank you.
Right, so I think we'll start with the salt then, Andy. That is, we've changed it anyway. I'll let Andy explain. Thank you, Andy.
I was looking forward to Michelle answering that question. It's relatively straightforward, is that previously we've used what's been known as brown salt, and obviously part of the issue is actually the colour and therefore the residue that it leaves. And obviously brown salt leaves a very sort of mucky sort of residue when it's been snowing and icy, etc. There's also issues in the context of the grain of that salt as well, which enables it to do the job that's intended to do more effectively. And I think, if I get this the right way around, the white salt is a finer grain and therefore dissipates off the network quicker once it actually gets washed away.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And then we've got two further questions, please. So I think it's about procurement and James, I think. Or Michelle, I don't mind. Somebody answer those.
Not sure if Councillor Bradwell wants to make a comment before I attempt to answer, because I think this is about the children's contracts. But
yeah, I think that'll be separate then. So just answer those then, please, and then we'll have Councillor Bradwell.
So the impacts on the contracts effectively of COVID, there's a couple of impacts really. So there were some contracts that we were looking to re-procure this year, and there's been decisions made to delay some of that because obviously some of the providers aren't in a position to kind of fully involve themselves in that process. So there were some areas where we had some savings we needed to make, and the procurement process has been delayed to try and do that in a normal business as usual environment, if you like. There's also, as we're re-procuring at the moment, there's also the issue of providers having additional costs that run the risk of building those into our ongoing contracts. So there's a risk around contracting at the moment about some costs and basically providers not being able to engage with the process and that costing us more over a longer term. Did you say it was on page 83, Councillor Woolley, that you was looking in particular?
Yes, it's 83, and the bullet points are headed by the financial position is driven by, I think it's about half, is it? No, it's at the top of the page, but it's in that first bullet point, second sentence. So it starts with loss of income from parents for post-16 transport. Yeah. But it's that next sentence, an increase in contract re-tendering costs, including delayed procurements. I
think that is savings we're anticipating we will make have effectively cost us money because we've not been able to go through the procurement process. And I'm sure Councillor Bradwell can probably add what's going on in terms of the whole school transport project, because I think that's quite key to that. But there will be some costs that we've effectively incurred because we've had to delay some of the re-procurement and some of the contracting in that area.
Okay.
So yeah, because of COVID basically and the sustainability of the markets, we've had to delay some of our tendering. That we've gained sometimes from that because we are anticipated increases haven't materialised, but also we've lost because anticipated savings have not been able to be taken. So it's just a bit of a swings and roundabouts, but I think we've got to accept that the provider market out there is very volatile and also very vulnerable, I would think is the fair comment. Councillor Bradwell, you probably want to come in, please.
Well, just to say that obviously, I just think some of the COVID money might be masking issues for the future. So, I mean, we know we've got a problem we've had to place children out of county, which is probably paying £5,000 a week or something like that. And we know about that. But I just think going forward, when we get back and we, do get all our services back working, especially children's centres, we don't know how many families in that are going to need some extra support. So I think we've got this and it's good, and we've had the COVID money, which has really helped the council out. But I just think it is about really monitoring what is happening on that front line so that we can be aware if there's any other issues coming forward, which is going to cost the council money. And I know we do that, But I just think, like with school transport, you just mentioned that, Michelle, we know we're doing this review. It's taking probably longer than we would have wanted, but we want a proper review of school transport so that we know going forward we can stabilise it as much as possible. But like Martin said, you only have to look at the special school project and the amount of extra money that contractors are putting into their final figures now because of COVID and because of getting supplies and that. So I think, we just, going forward, I know in my area, we will be, just making sure that the services, when they come back on stream, are probably, we know what's happening. It's not going to cause us a bit of a surprise with needing more money.
Thank you for that. Any further comments, questions, please? Councillor Parker, do you want to come in? Sorry, you're on mute, Rob.
We circulated the report in advance of the meeting because we discussed this at OSMB. A lot of the language that was used at OSMB has been used in the executive. Volatility and uncertainty and a lack of clarity. Clarity meaning that we can't be certain, but we're in a good financial position as a result of the COVID payments that we've received. The 31st of December, not just in this year, but in any year, is a false line. It's an accounting line, and it doesn't take into account the events. For example, the forecast surplus at Q2 for COVID was 7.673 million, which changed to 2.2 million deficit in the space of 3 months. Now, I'm sure that if that date hadn't been the 31st of March, 31st of December, a bit later, it could well have been completely different. So it's a very, very much a snapshot. The thing that has been highlighted and we noted as well is that that the COVID financing by the government has enabled us to do things that we had to do, and it does seem for the moment that we have come out of it on the right side. But whether that continues remains to be seen. So yes, it's a snapshot. Yes, we're doing okay, but there is the two words: volatility and uncertainty.
Thank you. I think that was a very good summary. Thank you, Councillor Parker. So unless anybody else wants to come in, I think that sums it up very well. So I'll just give a chance for anybody else to come in and say something. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. So the recommendations there are on page 38. That we know its current position and decides on any corrective activity. So we are not proposing any corrective activity. So are we going by default, Nigel, or do you want to vote on this?
I think if people indicate whether they have any dissent, Leader.
Thank you. Right. So anybody who disagrees with the recommendation, please now indicate. Not seeing
showing, Chair.
Okay, so I'll take that as agreed then. Thank you for that. And then we move on to the next, the twin of the report, which is the capital budget monitoring report for the same period. Michelle.
Thank you very much. So just a quick oversight of this, because there hasn't been quite as much change on this item as there was from Q2. So the capital position for Q3 is that we are forecasting an underspend of 18.587 million, which is a movement of 13 million from the Q2 position. The underspend relates to block schemes, which is about 5 million of that underspend, and specific projects, which is just over 13 million of the 18 million underspend. I'll just highlight a couple of key variances and key movements from Q2. So the first key movement is on place, where we are currently forecasting an underspend of just over 3 million on the highways asset protection block. I think that's just due to schemes and works being delayed because of weather conditions. We have an underspend forecast on commercial for broadband, which is an underspend of 4.6 million. which relates to the credits that come back through the contract that we have in that area. Previously reported underspends on variances. We are reporting an overspend actually on the Lincoln Eastern bypass, with a whole scheme forecast on the monitoring report of 8.75 million overspend. But as council will have approved the update of the budget for the LEB as part of the budget for 21-22, so that overspend will have been dealt with as part of that decision. And Grantham Southern Relief Road currently showing an underspend in the current year of 14 million, but also showing a whole scheme overspend of just over 8 million. But once again, that's been addressed as part of the council approved budget from February 19th. So I haven't got any other key areas to highlight. So just
Councillor Parker, then, please.
Sure, thank you. A few things. We recognised that there was now a capital review group which was looking at business cases in a, shall I say, an overarching way, which did include peer review. Now that's good. That seemed to be mainly an officer world. We thought that it was important that scrutiny committees should have regular periodic reports right from the start of large projects, and in turn that when papers came to us on OSMB, that we knew what would have been discussed at scrutiny committees, so that we were aware of what was happening in the areas where the greatest expertise was, whether it's to do with special schools capital schemes or highway schemes. It's important, we thought, that we would have in place particularly the big schemes with regular reviews, regular periodic reviews, so that we were warned early about potential overruns. This leads us on to the next council, which is after May elections, is training on finance and the scrutiny of major projects should be a priority, so that councillors have not only the skills, but the confidence to interrogate, and I use interrogate perhaps more harshly than it should be used, but to actually question and scrutinise the financial information that's presented to us, and to be able to recognise at an early stage whether programmes were online or likely to, in the future, exceed budgets. So that question of training was important. The involvement of scrutiny, particularly in high-cost schemes or ones with high risk, should be a more regular feature of individual scrutiny committees for major projects. So those were the points that we noted in relation to the way that we think we could add value through OSMB to the whole process of the capital programme.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think we look forward to after May that the executive will be given reports from overview scrutiny, and also the issue about not only monitoring the sort of the big projects, but also intervening when things go out of profile. I think that will be important as well. So certainly the scrutiny system can advise the executive that where things are going wrong or going right, in other words, and how we can any action that needs to be taken. So I think this is we haven't had any referrals yet, have we? As in the old capital monitoring system, have we at the moment, Michelle? But that the system should work. That if things are going out of profile, that there is a system where members can be invited or be expected to intervene and oversee what's going on.
Yeah, so sorry, just waiting for my mic to unmute there. Yeah, absolutely right. And I think probably what would help with some of these reports is if we can indicate on them where they have been seen by the individual service scrutinies, because we're aware that some of the major schemes are being taken to the relative service scrutiny committees, but that's maybe not feeding into our overview and scrutiny management papers and the papers to executive as well. So that's something we can definitely look at doing, trying to indicate where individual scrutinies have been able to look at some of these major projects as part of their work programme.
and then be coordinated by review and scrutiny, and then reported to the executive would seem to be the best way forward for me. And I think as Councillor Parker said, I think the financial training will be very important to give members more confidence that they should intervene and oversee things. See that the taxpayers' money is being spent well.
Yeah, we're definitely working with Nigel's team and with the Councillor Development Group to make sure that training features in the induction programme post-May.
And you did mention about the underspend on broadband. Can I just ask James just to clarify that the actual programme is delivering on target?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, so at the moment we're close to 95% superfast coverage for connectivity across the county, which is on target. The reason for it, technically, if you like, or in accounting terms, it is an underspend, but the reality is that, and I can take no credit for this because it was a contract drawn up long before I joined you, but it was a very good contract from Lincolnshire County Council's point of view, because the provider of that service, obviously the more they provide, the better it is, because it increases the number of people that have access to superfast broadband, but also they make more profit themselves because they can offer that facility to more of our population in the county. We, in effect, therefore, have some rebate returned to us as a result of their increased profit potential that they get from achieving that. So we've got some credit back on that contract, and we will then reinvest that in further expansion of superfast broadband connectivity now and in the future.
Yes, it was a while ago, but I remember it very well. And David O'Connor was the director involved at the time, and we had long conversations because the provider was very unwilling to offer this payback system, where in fact we're rewarded for if that take-up was higher than anticipated, which actually has been to be the case. But we're quite unique in that. Most of the councils just went along with what they were told they had to have, and there were some very robust arguments. I remember the deadline we refused to sign, and it got down to government. There was actually government was sitting there waiting, and we just said we weren't going to sign with BDUK unless we were given this. We were given it, and it's been very successful. So it just shows that I think that's one of the really good things we did in the past, which has delivered for us. So
you're absolutely right, Leader. Yes, most authorities haven't got that clause in their contracts with big telecom providers at all, and it's provided us with some additional funds, not insubstantial either, that we can then choose to invest in that and help us deliver increased performance in that area in the future.
Thank you. Any other further comments, questions on this paper, please? Okay, the recommendations are on page 103, that again, we note the position and decide on any corrective action, which we're not doing so. So we are noting and not suggesting any corrective action. Anybody who disagrees with that recommendation, please now show.
None showing, Leader.
Thank you very much. So that is then agreed unanimously. And with that, that concludes the meeting. So just leaves me to say thank you very much for your attendance, ladies and gentlemen, and look forward to seeing you in a month's time. Thank you.